Hello friends of software entertainment and welcome to another live coding session. This time I will be integrating a marketing UI element from the Flowbyte Pro component library and implementing a new hero section on the Never Code Alone site. The focus here is on accessible web design, specifically website accessibility. This topic is very close to my heart. My name is Roland, and I publish 2 live coding tutorials per week in this context. So, if you are not familiar with this channel yet, feel free to follow and turn on the bell. After the intro, we will dive straight into the matrix as usual. Enjoy! And with that, we are already here in my local DDEV Docker development environment, and we have the header that is currently on the site. This is a mirrored copy for my local environment. And we see here are topics for accessible web design that are important and do not meet the ALI standard. And indeed, this headline, which is perhaps the most important element of my entire website from a marketing perspective, does not have sufficient contrast. Similarly, here are my call to action buttons, even though they do not yet link to a good demo page. This is a topic that concerns content marketing overall, which might be wrong here, but here it cannot be read properly. And when I hover over it with the mouse, you can see that the email turns green, which just doesn't convert properly. These background images are causing major problems, and I would have to go with white, and that's very difficult, so I want to change it today. Since yesterday, I have acquired a Flowbyte Pro account for nearly $300, and when I am logged in, I have access to corresponding blogs. And among these blogs, there is first an overview of all of them. I can also search for them individually here. Here, I already have the hero sections I want, but I also have categories such as filters for marketing UI, application UI, the important e-commerce UI, and a somewhat smaller publisher UI, which is aimed at content marketing here. Today, we want to have a new hero section here, and then I get 18 components suggested accordingly, and I see what I can do here. And the important thing for me is that we have an image, and also 2 call to actions, a headline. And this is a big problem here with Tailwind Pro. The accessibility is simply not sufficient. We can see that a lot of gray is used throughout the entire page. That doesn't provide enough contrast to fulfill anything for me. I don't even need a tool to see that myself. I'm practically affected by it myself. However, we can significantly improve the color contrast ourselves. Now let's first take a look at which element we will use here, okay? Now I have decided on an appropriate hero section component, specifically this one. We not only offer accessible web design, but also many web development trainings. And then it would be quite good if there was a statement somewhere about who we are, what we do, and which products you can contact us about, along with a corresponding picture of me to establish a bit of trust. And now it's important that we also take a look at the whole thing on the tablet. And there is the picture. I find that very unfortunate, of course. Now we also need to add the image. This is just annoying. And the whole thing is also on the mobile path. I'm not particularly happy about that. I can integrate if I want, but I'll take another look at one with an image. I'm a bit annoyed at this point that this is the case. I'm thinking about how we could solve this accordingly. If I'm here in 2001, where can we place the image now? I also don't want to go full width here, which means I think the whole thing could maybe be a bit more compact. But at this point, I also want to quickly implement something here and not spend the whole day tweaking this element. I have 18 components, so I will just push the whole thing back for now. And with that, I have found the optimal solution for myself. I would actually go for a combination of 2 elements now. Here I have the left section with a newsletter sign up, and in the mobile view, I also have the correct view here. I find it a bit unfortunate that you can't simply move this around responsively. You can do directly in the UIKit interface in Tailwind. I find that quite helpful, but I can imagine that at some point it will break and the corresponding images will be underneath. There are some logos right here below, which I will remove accordingly. And then I have the HTML code right here that I need. And here is a config for Tailwind as it shows that colors are being reset and corresponding fonts are also being reset. I'm not that far along yet. However, what I find quite good is that I can also view the whole thing here directly with a robot, for example. There aren't the biggest differences here. You can see a bit of variation between the fonts, but you can definitely see that I can try out different fonts here. At this point, I would probably take a closer look at which font to use and simply revert to the standard of the current Never Code Alone. Now, the first step is to integrate Flowbyte into the existing Never Code Alone site. It is now running with Tailwind CSS, and I hope that this does not cause any conflicts, meaning that Flowbyte also uses Tailwind, so it retains my old and existing components and allows me to add new ones. For this, there is the corresponding Flowbyte Getting Started introduction documentation, and here we also have Symfony. And with Symfony, you can now say that you are essentially installing Webpack Encore. We have already done that because we are working with Tailwind CSS here. And we have Tailwind CSS here, which needs to be installed. And now, with Flowbyte coming in, maybe we don't need to do anything because Flowbyte is based on Tailwind. I just see this is the installation of Tailwind CSS. And let's see what the Flowbyte bundle says. I'll check where exactly I can find it here. I find this a bit confusing right now because I just clicked on Symfony and Flowbyte. And yes, let's see how this works. But otherwise, we can first check if it really fits in exactly as we want it to. And that would be really great, because then I wouldn't have to do anything in the corresponding setup of my content management system. And with that, we are already here in PapStorm, and here there are templates, includes, and I have Edugate. This is an old layout, but our courses are still based on it. We now need to gradually switch them to Tailwind because they have poor loading times, are not accessible, and are getting in our way. And apart from that, of course, I have landed in an absolute Seam Forest legacy hell. But there is also the point of Tailwind, and here there are corresponding blocks. And there is already an existing hero section. And the hero section from the start page, and I could go here and say, I will create a brand new folder with Flowbyte. But I don't want to do that because I don't want to reprogram everything from scratch here. Instead, I would simply say that I will use a corresponding new naming convention here and also consider what makes sense for editors. For this, I will go back to this hero section accordingly. Here it also appropriately says Tailwind CSS hero section as if I weren't on Flowbyte at all. So I'm definitely very close here. I have a headline and a description here in general. And now I would simply call this hero imagere at this point. Then I have described the corresponding element here, XML, and now I have an empty file here. Now I press Ctrl-J and select a Zulu config block element here. I am now using the PHPStorm live templates usand because I always have big problems with copy-paste and cannot work as quickly. So I can now press Ctrl-J, select a Zulu blocks config, and use the same name here, so that the corresponding key mapping is found directly in the template. I can then specify hero image right, as this is the key here, and it will be automatically written in two places. If I press enter now, I can say hero image right, which is what the editor will see when making the selection, and I can simply say that I already have a headline that I can set up here without elaborating on further elements. I just want to see if the whole thing works first. From the XML configuration, we now move directly into the template specifically with the name here. Here I have the includes my tailwind, here I have blocks, and here I can say that I use file, then use the same key accordingly and say HTML twig. And with that, I have already mapped it and can now simply transfer the code from the element 1 to 1. For this, we go to show code accordingly. As I said, it's a bit cumbersome because there are now iterative things here, so I have to remove a bit more code, which I find a bit unfortunate. However, I can copy the code accordingly and paste it here. And something that I have identified as a best practice for myself here is that I go ahead and add an HTML comment right at the top, indicating that this element starts here, and then I add another comment at the bottom, indicating that it ends here. This way, I definitely have information on which element might be causing problems here. Or it helps me a lot with debugging because I have many elements and I don't feel like searching through them to find what is listed somewhere with CSS classes and then somehow searching with Shift. I don't feel like doing that. And now I can take this whole element here, copy it to the clipboard again, and insert it accordingly. Since I am working in a local development environment, it is very important for me to set up a watcher so that all the files in the dist folder, which is the public folder, are regenerated. You can see this under public, build website, in my workflow and process. This will now be compiled into a CSS where the new classes are present, including the ones listed here. And now I wonder why the watcher isn't watching, perhaps. I need to take another look at that. 1 second, that's now resolved. While in JavaScript and all other UI frameworks, it's called watch. Here in PHP Encore, it's simply npm run watch. But with that, we are now also on track. We can say at this point that we need to go ahead and do an rm/rf cache here, as I need this to ensure a new element is loaded. And with that, it is now definitely available in the admin interface. Now I have logged in accordingly, and of course I want to make my element invisible on the home page first. I can definitely do this here in the settings and say don't display on the public website. I have now removed this accordingly and can now say at this point that I don't have an element here because I forgot to register it. That's annoying. I can save this here already as I am in my local environment, but I still need to go here and register it accordingly. And I have had hero sections here. Here I have the start page, and below it there is another hero. At this point, I would simply rearrange this here and then say I will include an item and go to hero, image right, and have now added it accordingly. I definitely need to go back, hard clear the cache again, and do a reload here. And then it actually turns out that there is an unexpected incorrect input here. That could still be handled, but it is not so relevant at this point. I say here we take the corresponding hero section on the right. We can also write it correctly again and write the headline here. Say save, publish, move it completely to the top, say publish again, and then check why it is not loading here. Now I'll make a quick fix here. Everything that happens here is definitely real. I hope this helps you accordingly. Feel free to write in the comments whether you prefer this kind of live coding, which is real and raw, or if you would rather have me fire off something pre-cooked at a high level. But then you won't see as well how to perform the corresponding debugging. And at that point, it might cause a few problems. Now everything is loaded accordingly. We can see that it already appears here where I did a reload, that it has the correct title. And now I can simply and easily take a quick look at how everything appears live on the site by loading it just once. With that, I have this example in here. Now I can say yay, I'll take a look at the whole thing responsively. This is definitely already breaking here and has the corresponding elements that we will need to improve in terms of contrast later. But what I wanted to do now was to take what was on the left side in the other hero section element here in the Flowbyte Pro version, essentially. I really like that very much. We need to quickly find it immediately. Here it is. We have this discover basically up to view list, which we need as an element. And now let's take a look at the corresponding code. Here we have a col span of 8, such as an H, and this inner part, for example. And now we need to consider how this looks and whether I can actually just shoot it in there in terms of the overall scene. I do believe, Yusan, that it can be done accordingly. I just need to take a quick look. We have here the Winevest special, which is here. We have here a cold span 6. Here is this element. I would say that it goes from here to here. If I remove this specific section and carefully insert the code from here at this exact point, this is the closing div tag, then theoretically it could look like this, just the way I want it to appear, perfectly aligned and formatted. In the background, the hot reload is now happening. At this point, I no longer need to go and clear the cache from Symfony. This is only necessary if the Symfony config files change. And I can say it again now, because I definitely need to reload everything here. And that already looks pretty cool. Now you just need to adjust the size a bit. Maybe this picture here, I can get it upright again just like it was in the preview. I think that's quite good, especially if this is a placeholder and not an iframe. Then I can also look for the vertical image of the other element at this point. That would definitely take care of this for me. I can check if this behaves correctly here. In my opinion, this is really quite good and just the way I want it. The adjustment I would make here, we can take another detailed look at it. It often happens that you notice that the spacing, or let's say this white spot on mobile, you can also see that there is a large edge at the top, is too high with these frameworks. But I'm already on the right track. Now let's take another look at the image. I believe that was right here. And if I can get this image again, here is this hidden element that is happening. I believe I have the size information correctly in here. I think we definitely still need this W and this absolutely. Let's see what happens here, because this is definitely happening now. Let's assume that we need this accordingly in order to properly and effectively. I would take a look to get a sense at what exactly the difference is here. I'll copy this to the clipboard and take a look. There is indeed a YouTube iframe in here. There is a Coldspan 6 in here as well. I would generally say that I will remove this entire item list below. We definitely don't need it. Let's definitely update this to see if it still fits, and only the items are now gone. That just worked out. Now I still have my corresponding image on the clipboard. I can insert it here. It's no longer on my clipboard. I'll just check again where it is. I would put it here once. I would insert this here as it is within this Coldspan 6, which probably indicates how it behaves overall. And I would say that it should definitely always be displayed. I'll check if this fits. 2001 in the idea as I intend. Okay, this is flying a bit too large here. It doesn't end anymore. That means there is probably something in a higher element that limits the whole thing here. I'll find out what this is about. So I've done it now. When this wraps, the image is centered accordingly. This is the result I wanted. For this, I have integrated a flex, justify center, item center here. This could probably be done more easily. Copilot just told me this in PHP Storm. The loading time here from Flowbyte is a disaster here. When working with it, you might want to choose something that loads more quickly. The problem we still have at this point is that the link is currently not visible. This might possibly be due to the white text. I'll remove this. Maybe you just can't see it with the background right now. Okay, that looks better, right? I will add the appropriate buttons there. But basically, I have already implemented it statically as a proof of concept to ensure that everything works. And now I will make it dynamic and adjust these. Two things here accordingly. We have a date here that corresponds to a headline. These items here will be removed. I don't find that particularly relevant for our site to reprogram it now, and I will get a very nice call to action button which I will fetch right now. Finish this statically here, then implement it accordingly and deploy it live. I'm going to make a cut here and start another video. I'll grab a coffee. So follow the channel and stay tuned. That's it for today from here. I hope it helped you understand how to quickly integrate Flowbyte Tailwind CSS components into a content management system and play around with them to see if everything fits. This is definitely much better than if you had implemented everything and then found out, hey, this doesn't really work well on my site. I can't use Flowbyte together with Tailwind at all here. You saw the installation setup at the beginning where I didn't have to do anything but could simply use it out of the box. And at this point, just a reminder to try things out first before you commit, so you know when you can deliver something and then make reliable statements. Here is definitely another video that you will like, the entire Tailwind CSS playlist. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. Stay green and strong.